You cannot confuse Leslie or any of the other pornography children you've ever seen with the little one wearing all their clothes and enjoying her little life. No girls with their clothes on are at all like the ones that have taken them off and stood before a camera. You look at the shots differently, and the girls look back differently. I'll tell you this. I own a picture of her in the tiniest white bikini bottom I've almost ever seen, if it weren't for those adult whores that model the fucking things everywhere you look. Her ass is away from the camera, so I can only see the string that is tied across her hip, and the curve of her thighs. She twists her arms over her fucking chest. Blocking everything better, she reaches those long, spindly arms around her skinny, sunning body. At least 13. Coming into her own, her mother would warn and pedophiles would record. Regulars would be able to masturbate at this, as she's showing enough long skin and enough self-awareness to look like sex, to mimic the same shots bikini watchers and model jagoffs look for. They would have to remind themselves that she's just an undeserving child, as they focused on the little white pouch that slides over that little skin patch under her flat belly and hard pubic bone. The bathing material is so small and bunched up over her little cunt that it barely hides anything. I've seen her move those arms like that as an adult. She's in perfect health. She drapes them over her head, behind her back while she's sleeping, and she's shy, drunk. There is no connection to a little girl knowing that someone is masturbating at her tight little crotchless crotch. Mine can be a brat. I've got lots of shots of her pouting and frowning and yelling. Children are like that, certainly. I have shots of her as a cute little toddler, smiling and squinting and waving at the camera as if she doesn't know what it is she's supposed to look at. Tiny feet and tiny shoes and big buttons on her knees for childish design like a little clown. And a small baby's body, maybe 2 at the most, that would let you do anything you wanted to it. That would just look up at you the same way she looks up at the Ginzo with the camera telling her to smile and fucking wave. Naked. She would just stand there stupid, waiting for the next step, until she got cold or frightened and tried to play with you, hide and seek, or slap you for not talking to her as you just stood over her and stared. Until she made the move, until her teetering personality came to the fore, where she held out her arms so that the adults could hug her, help her. Don't cry, sweetheart. And you get to feel her warm hair against the palm of your hand. You know she'd put her head against your chest when she realized she was frightened. And then she was just a little relieved, and that flush scared her. She'd appreciate the hug and pats and whispers and little kisses on her forehead. I have many pictures of her in the hospital. Something had happened to her arm and hand, and she liked to walk out of the hospital bed, looking messy and unkempt and a little dazed. Very cared for. Her little arm is wrapped up in gauze, and her hand is in a cast. She's so small. You don't like to see children in the hospital unless you know they're all right now. It would be depressing to the audience to think that the little cutie that stomped around in her bunny jammies and bandages couldn't be helped beyond her little happy, unknowing giggles. I like to see her safe best at that age, wrapped up in her little bulky, cumbersome winter coat, walking and wobbling in the snow, under Mom's watchful laughs and instructions. The little thing looks straight down at her feet. When she gets a little older, 5 first, and then maybe 8 or 9, I like to see her drinking from a little fruit juice carton with a straw and sipping out of a plastic cup, respectively. Her clothes have gotten thinner, her hair trained and managed and prepared. Her face has gotten thinner as well. Her eyes look at the camera now as if bored with photographers, and she has something nice to enjoy. She's always safe, always has been. There's a big difference between the 2 little girls, and I've not yet seen enough photos of Leslie enjoying her life around her camera-mad family, which is a shame. The photos of Leslie will forever be left to the shots that her murderer took, and that her mother gave the press to help look for her and then record the tragic details of her pornographic murder. I don't think I'm supposed to forget about the little slim-bodied coming child. I can't see a point in forgetting her. I worry more about her well-being than those who were entrusted to her protection certainly did. She's a fucking kid, just a fucking kid. Fuck's sake, leave her alone. Mine has red hair, his had black hair. Lots of black hair that the mother knew had just been cut, just like Daniel Van Damme, in fact. I love her red hair. I've felt it and buried my face in it. I've seen her play with it and drop it in my lap, and then push it out of her face when she came up from swallowing my lazy, drunk heart-on. I watched as she tried to ask me if she sucked cock as good as the faggots that I usually fuck do. Why are you lying? Because you have to take care of people. It is what you do. It is what you learn as you get older. It isn't about just getting some cunt and keeping it there. It isn't about degradation and denial mechanisms. You take care of them. It is garbage dump compassion. You don't feel sorry for her, not at all. You don't feel hurt or disturbed or uncomfortable by their position. You have to do too much work to get that way. Tell me about the moment when your heart broke. Tell me what effect that most horrible photo had on your life. How you decided right then and there to start helping in any way you could. The adults you fuck, you try very hard to help her get over her schizophrenia. That's all it ever is. Pet her, calm her down, feed it antidepressants, feed it antibacterial steroids. You try very hard to make her feel better at the moment. You want her to be happy right then. It's how you get through all the pantomime. It's easiest to pretend that you're getting something very low level, something very base, and everything else is acceptable because of that, but you wouldn't be able to help otherwise. Listen to the people who speak with concern in their voices. Then listen to the way women above the age of 18 sound when they're getting fucked. When someone lies all over them, look at the way she looks, the way she forgets how she looks. Look at how little she did before she got this way, or at how much she appreciates her youth, wants to keep her body supple like that for as long as possible. Listen to her excuses when she finally gives up. You'll see that it all changes, that it all did change. Watch the littlest child you can stand perform the same act. See how sycophantic you twist soon enough. What would you like to do? Find something better. What would you like to do all the time? Find something better. Find something even better. Find me something better. Tell me about all the time you waste. You learn to think like they pretend to. You learn to separate your thoughts from your actions by guessing what they want from you. It's important to do that. It's important to stay out of trouble. What's the best moment in a blowjob? It's not the orgasm. It's not what they do. It isn't when they check their progress. It is most probably when they look the youngest, the most willing to do anything outside of aged guile. The worst art is the kind that pretends to be cutting through the truth. This sort of pornography leaves, at least, the method out. Tell me about her asshole. You don't know whose it is when you're there. It doesn't taste or feel specific. Tell me about your asshole. Do you want someone to lick your asshole? I know it far too well to allow that to happen. Do you think you know these children? You don't need to hear her squeak. You know her voice is tiny and high-pitched, squeezed. It won't be dirtier. It won't make the point better than the image. All these plugs who say it was their faces that haunt me are lying. Their faces are just like anyone else's. They are ultimately uniform. What would you do with these children exactly? Bring them to tears in ways that slowly make sense given what you're willing to do. Let them surprise me and then decide how best to use it against them, like fucking, responding to what your improvising sensual partner wants, and pretend that it's not easy enough to have figured it out well beforehand. See if it'll work the second time. Look for that extra big smile, sweetheart. What do you do with these children? I masturbate immediately. I have watched others masturbate to them. I have been brought off by others while I watch these children. I have not hurt any of them. I have asked for more photos and have received more photos. Has that been enough? Yes. When will it be enough? When it stops getting better? Fucked her in the ass because she insisted in preferring her anus to her cunt and would move her fingers meaty around her clit and labia while I pumped behind her. I couldn't come. My drunk turned nauseous. I hated the way she allowed me back there in porn form. I preferred men's assholes anyways. If I liked anything, it could well have been the way I pissed in assholes and on their faces back when I was younger. I didn't want to slosh around in something soft and pretty. I knew I should thrust deeper and change my pace. I knew to lean in and down across her back and try to alter my speed and deepness. I was sickened. I wanted it over with. I couldn't keep hard. All I thought about was what I was missing and how far I dropped from the original intention and how I didn't necessarily want to bring all of this up to vomit all over such a pretty girl anyways. So you end up spitting on her in the bathroom while she licks your balls. You end up with your thumb in her ass and your fingers in her cunt, trying unsuccessfully to hit her fucking G-spot while she fucking watches you dig. It got easier when you touched the shit in her ass, feeling the healthy young crumbs instead of the soft wet six and paste that you usually find in queers and up your own. She twisted her body around to help me come finally and licked at my cock. I knew I stunk like her insides and that, no matter what she had done with all that usual garbage she ever fucked before, this had to be the first time she tasted a small mouthful of sperm that smelled and tasted and swallowed exactly like her highly perfumed bowels. She wouldn't let me taste the condom she tugged off my cock after I cummed in it and let it drop from her ass. She knew from past experience that it was covered in her shit, and yet, just to get the sleazy little act over, she slid under my cock, lipped and tongued up both kinds of ruddy scum. If I'm going to fuck ahead, I'm almost always going to have to see myself humping over the specific children I've seen abused. And all too often, the performing monkey maw held still while I dump into it back and forth. Leave your fucking tongue flat. Just keep your mouth open. Toilets don't scratch back. Toilets are flat, children. I'm so fucking drunk or fucked up these past few months that I've been looking forward to the little garbage pails breaking my skin so I could piss back into their mouths with complete social impunity. I've coated the tongues of people I like with my stomach blood as well as black smeared acid reducers and the stench of rotting gums and teeth. I learned to enjoy kissing faggot strangers who would open their mouths first and crick their heads back so I could grope around the inside of their viral blisters and peeled roofs. I keep my fucking eyes shut almost always. They do the same when they see mine, and they grind and squeeze much harder then. I find myself focusing, memorizing, unable to come otherwise. Looking at my little one's long legs growing throughout the years. She moves from her mother's baby to giggling toddler to young adulthood. It is important that she grow, that the clothes she wore to cover up her gorgeous little elongating body were constantly traded and forgotten about.
Usually she's there early because she knows if she's a minute late, then I'll worry. And 5 minutes went by, and 10 minutes went by, 15 minutes went by, and now I'm starting to get really worried. And by 10 of 10, my anxieties were too high. So I went to the guards and I asked them to page her. And they paged her, and the security guards scanned the mall with the cameras, and they couldn't find her, and then I started getting hysterical, and then they called the police. And I even went out looking for her myself, even they told me not to, but I did. Well, that night, I started calling her friends. You know,
Right.
First the police drove me home. I didn't want to go because I said, well, what if Chrissy shows up and I'm not here? And they said, you know, the security guards know, and they'll be on the lookout for her and they'll bring her home. Well, when I came home, I started checking with her friends, and then I started checking on the internet. We can get on the internet, but we finally got on the internet, and the police felt that she was a runaway. And I said, no, she is not a runaway. Chrissy would never do that. We had too close a relationship, but then they told me, well, look, you didn't know anything about what was on the internet, so how do you know? So in my heart, I knew that something terrible had happened, but I wanted to believe the police because that was a better outcome. So I hadn't slept from Friday, you know, so they came in and I opened the door and I started looking for Chrissy. And I knew when I saw the pastor what they were going to tell me.
Well, if we don't have a code word, if anybody comes up to us, we wouldn't be safe. Well, I was walking home from Vista Elementary, and a guy in a red car pulled up to me and said, I got some candy in the car, and I said no. So he said, your mom got in an accident. But I said, what's the code word? And he didn't say anything, so I said no, and I ran to Isabella.